of Impact is a special one because it was filmed in Mumbai, India. WWE hasn't done it yet, or any other company has generally not gone there to generally tape and then play it back in America. So, unless I'm wrong, this is very historic. But was the show good? There was a lot of stupid stuff in this show, like most times. But I will say it was generally effective. But here's one match that made no freaking sense. The last match of the night, Alberto El Patron versus Chris Adonis. He was the person that was chosen by Bruce Pritchard to actually give a challenge to Alberto El Patron. Of course, you got Moose for Lashley, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But you used Chris Adonis. Now, I would have thought you used maybe Eli Drake. I know last week he had his chance against Moose and he lost. But maybe Eli would have been better because he is someone that is more better developed for Impact Wrestling because he's been around longer. Of course, Chris Adonis has done some spots there, but he hasn't been there constantly. So it would have been better for him. Or it could have been EC3. I would have liked to see EC3 in that spot. But that wasn't there either. So what did we get? We get an incredibly confusing freaking match that is supposed to be a title match for the GFW Championship, but it acts like a Falls Count Anywhere match. What? Then they go back into the ring after a while, and in the end, Alberto wins. Gets his ass kicked by Chris and Eli Drake. You got Lashley watching, and then Moose comes out to protect him. So it wasn't that effective. It was not that effective of a match. Now here's the Moose and Lashley match, which I felt was much more effective. And you wonder, Moose should not be holding a title now. Eli should have won it last week, to be honest. If you're going to be honest here, Eli should have won the match last week. And this would have made better sense to put Moose up against Lashley because Moose always wanted the Impact Grand, not just the Impact Grand Championship, but the World Heavyweight Championship. In a sense, you would say, well, put champion versus champion. That actually makes some sense. You could say yes, but then it doesn't make any sense, to be honest. Because if you're going to do that, where's the next gen title? The Impact Grand Championship is a mid-card title. The next gen title for GFW is a mid-card title. Why isn't that there? So it's like, what are you doing? It just didn't seem like it flowed properly in that respect with the titles. But the match was a good match. It was a bit competitive, and the thing that made this entire show very palatable was the crowd. The crowd made this show good. Not great, but good. And I was very happy to see how the crowd cared. In the end, Lashley won just like El Patron. You're not going to get them the job here. They got to work at Slammiversary. Now, here's something that's kind of confusing. The Slammiversary Hall of Fame. You get some scenes of people talking about it. Then you get Curt Hennig shown. Does that mean Curt Hennig is going to be the next Impact Hall of Famer? Actually, it would be kind of cool to do that because he was a TNA at one point before he died. So I don't know the situation there. You wonder maybe it will be Curtis Axel who will be inducting him. But you wonder if that's even going to be him. They haven't announced anything yet. Maybe that's going to come next week. You never know. They just wanted to talk about Curt Hennig, not really have him actually become a part of the Hall of Fame, which I think wouldn't be a bad thing. Loki versus, who was it? Loki versus Connolly. I keep forgetting Connolly because we have barely seen him, other than when he was Suicide. I didn't really care that much about a match. It wasn't a bad one, but I didn't really care about it because Loki didn't really have a very credible challenger. We barely seen Connolly. So in the end, Loki wins, gets a cut over his eye. Of course, it's on this side, but I'm just cutting it like that. And then we get Sanjay Dutt coming out. Yes! This is what I was hoping for. Sanjay Dutt versus Loki. Now, here's an interesting thing about Sanjay Dutt. He is from New York, but he is an Indian American. Unlike Mohammad Ali Shearer, who directly is from India, Sanjay Dutt is a New Yorker. So even though he does relate to the people of India, he's from my neck of the woods. So it's kind of nice to see two New Yorkers go after a title. For me personally, I want to see this at Slammiversary to be really important and special. But because they're going to do this next week, we don't get that. It's understandable why. If Sanjay Dutt wins, and I haven't checked no spoilers, and please don't anyone tell me that he won or not. I don't want to know. I want to be surprised. But if Sanjay Dutt wins at Mumbai, it would make perfect sense. Because an Indian American winning a title like that is very important for Impact to get a good foothold in India over the WWE. Because let's be honest here. WWE and Impact need more people to inject more money into the companies. And India, who is well known to be loving wrestling, as much as the UK and most of Europe, they get a foothold over the WWE, they will be golden. Because India is very loyal to whoever they really believe is special. And not saying they won't love WWE, but if Impact literally makes a great impression with them, they will get something great out of it more than the WWE will. That's how I feel about it. But in the end, we'll see it next week, and we'll go from there. Davey Richards was by himself without Angelina Love. Maybe she stayed behind so she can take care of their son. But in the end, he was with a jobber. He kicks the jobber's ass. EC3 comes out, whips the jobber's ass with a belt, and then Storm comes out and pretty much is ready to attack EC3, but it doesn't really happen. That really didn't feel right. I don't know. It really sounded great when the jobber got his ass beaten by EC3. The match between Davey Richards and the jobber was very good. I can't remember the guy's name, so I'm sorry. I'm not being disrespectful to the Indian wrestler. I just don't remember his name. So in the end, the match was good. The beating was good. But sticking them together didn't feel that good. I mean, it just didn't seem to flow properly. Now, Mohammad Ali Shearer had his segment, which was pretty well done. And it makes perfect sense for Mohammad Ali Shearer to be spotlighted here more than Sanjay Dutt. For the simple fact, Sanjay Dutt is an American Indian. An American with Indian descent. Mohammad Ali Shearer is directly from India. He's an Indian native. And talking about his father, his uncle, seeing his younger brother who's smaller but cock diesel like him was actually really nice to see. I know a lot of people will say, well, they're only doing this because they're in India. Of course they are. But in the end, it was still very effective. But the problem here is this. Mohammad Ali Shearer being shown like this is really great. But he has no character development. He's never really held a title. And he's never really had a substantial feud next to Al Snow. And that's the major issue. And I'm not saying he's a great talent. But if you're going to start doing something in India, you need to restructure the guy. You need to make him special. He needs to work on his work. Of course, he could turn heel and start becoming more Indian, kind of like what's going on with Jinder Mahal. You could do that. But in this case, it's going to depend if he can play a good heel, and I don't think he can. It's kind of hard to say. The Joseph Park segment with JB was stupid. But it's exactly what I hoped for, what I said in my last Impact review. You need to show these guys actually preparing for Slammiversary to make them relevant. I've always said this, like in my Book in the Wrestler series. To make someone a great wrestler, you must give them a title, or relevance, or both. You gotta make JB relevant. You gotta make Joseph Park relevant for this match at Slammiversary. So in the end, you got this to a certain extent. Seeing JB do a belly flop in a pool was beautiful. I can't get into a pool because I can't swim, and with my leg, I would just scream in agony when my body hits the water. But in the end, it was still very effective, and I approve of it. Was it a great thing? It could work. Needs more work, but still I approve. Now, what do we got here? Only a few things left. Swoggle versus Spud. I said it was coming last week, and we saw the segment for Swoggle explaining why he acted the way he did. In the end, we got these two at each other's throats almost. So there will be a Slammiversary match. Unless they're going to be stupid enough not to do it, and they're going to do it at Mumbai, which I think will be dumb. They must do it at Slammiversary. It makes better sense. I'm sorry. It just does. And in the end, the last thing I'm going to talk about is Rosemary versus Venice. Now, there's only one major problem with the situation. It wasn't that the match was bad, no. Particularly that Rosemary's incorporated a little bit of The Undertaker into her gimmick. Because once she's knocked to the floor, she has her knees behind the back of her neck almost. And then she lifts herself up like The Undertaker did, but through her knees instead of through her back sitting up. She's using her knees to bring herself back up. Which I think is a very nice gimmick for her. It actually works very well for the character she has. The match wasn't the issue. Here's the problem. We've barely seen anything of Rosemary for quite a while. Now we're seeing her work with Ali, which Ali came to the ring after the match was over when Rosemary won and protected her. So what does this mean between Rosemary and Ali? It's not a bad alliance between the one that is the most loved in an Ali in the face and the one that's the most loved as a heel somewhat as a Rosemary. Rosemary's more of a face than a heel. Let's be honest. The paint makes her feel like a heel, but she is a face. So you got two faces, obviously. But the problem here is this. Sienna is going to have to defend that title eventually against Rosemary. And we're getting nothing from Sienna. And KM is fucking pissing me off because I can't stand his character being Biff from the... Calm down. From the... Why did they have to turn him into the Biff of Back to the Future? Why? Why? I hate it. But this is what they've done with him. And Sienna's not being promoted as the GFW Women's Championship. She's not really had many matches as the GFW Women's Champion. The woman who was the previous champion, Erie, I believe, has not come back, which was a bad mistake because I believe Erie should have already had a rematch. But we don't get that. So it feels like nothing for Sienna and something going on for Rosemary, and the feud that Sienna and Laura Vanessa against Rosemary and Ali is all we got. And if you're going to merge the two women's titles, you got to do something with Rosemary dealing with a Sienna soon. Because if this is going to be if Rosemary is going to defend her title at Slammiversary and try to claim the GFW title so they can be merged, you're not making much of an interest. It's not much better than LAX. And that segment they had might have been interesting, but they should have been at Mumbai to really say something in a ring. Not in a video segment unless they couldn't leave the country. But that's just me. And I hope you enjoyed this Zane view. Please give me a comment below. I'm sorry this is late. I was thinking of trying to do this on Friday, but I couldn't do it because I had to go to my doctor. I've been wanting to do these video series of Impact Wrestling on a Friday, but I just can't because I still see my doctors on Friday. So, I hope you don't mind. Have a good day. Have a good night. Peace!